so I wasn't really familiar with the US kind of car wash market. I hadn't really thought about it. I mean, if ever I got my car washed and I was over there, I tend to go to a gas station, a petrol station, and go through one of those awful ones that, do a pretty shabby job, and if you're lucky if they don't damage the car. But back in 2018-ish, I think it was, we came across some guys who said, have you heard about this express car wash business? And they showed us the market, and we just learnt a load from that. And we saw that it was large, it was growing. What was really interesting was the subscription model business. So, the difference was, if you think of your gas station one, you drive in, it's one car at a time. It probably takes 7 or 8 minutes, to go through it. It's very slow. If you go on a Sunday afternoon, sometimes I'm driving to one near my house, you might have 7 or 8 cars in front of you. You could spend an hour before you get through it. Or alternatively, more recently, you'll go to a warehouse somewhere, and there'll be some guys who will wash your car by hand, and it's not the most kind of luxurious environment to find yourself in. You might go into a kind of a sort of rather grubby looking waiting room with a kind of 4-day-old copy of The Sun to read while they're doing it, and that's the experience.
And Sakeer's shutting some of them down, for being dodgy fronts.
Probably, and I could tell you all kinds of stories that I've heard about that. Well, the express car wash is very, very different. So you're talking about brand new stores that are on an acre of land. The tunnels themselves, or the buildings themselves, are kind of 5,000 square foot. The tunnels are anywhere from 100 to 150 foot long, and they'll do 7 or 8 cars at a time. So you got a conveyor belt. So you literally drive in, hit the conveyor, you stay in your car, and you're pulled through. And there's kind of different types of conveyors. We have a particular one that we've done, which we think has got certain advantages. But you get pulled through, and you're out inside of 2.5 minutes. And the car comes out dry, and then you'll drive around, and either you'll exit, in which case you're off in a couple of, kind of out inside of 3 minutes, or you'll pull up at a vac station, and you have 24 vac stations, car parking spaces with a very high suction vacuum, and various other towels that we offer, and you'll clean the inside yourself. So it's a self-serve.
Clean it yourself.
On the interior, you do yourself. The exterior, the tech does for you, and the tech's fantastic. Yes, the amount of polish and shine that you get on the car, it just looks really, really good. Once you've been through it 5-6 times, it just looks incredibly shiny. I mean, we've had on our consumer reviews, we were going, "Wow, this looks like a brand new car. I can't believe what it looks like." So it makes a very big difference. And for a lot of people, the car is, if it's not their most valuable, it's their second most valuable asset. So people like the idea, particularly in the US, of looking after it and protecting it, and that's what it does. But the model itself, it's just a great model. It's, if you get it right, if you get the real estate right, if you get the operation right, you get the marketing right, it's a great model. You're looking at 5,000 to 10,000 members per site. $40-50 a month per member. Clipping in. The member will use it 3 times per month. Your gross margin is around 92%. Your EBITDA margin's around 50 to 55%. And you've got, I would say, if you get it right, 85% of your volume, 85%, even up to 90% of your volume is membership. Wow. So you'll sit with these sites at anywhere from $3 to $5 million of revenue. Making between 1 and 3 million per site, and you build out. I mean, ours is higher because we have a great building and we put more tech into ours, but including the land, we're probably building out at 10 to 12 million, per site. So you're sort of getting about a 5-year, 4.5-5-year payback unlevered on your money. So by the time you pop leverage on top of that, obviously doing that much better. So, from a yield on cost perspective, I say it prints out to comfortably a 17, yield on cost, which if you compare that to real estate investments, that's pretty attractive, particularly as you've got 80% recurring revenue from your subscription model. That's what makes it really interesting. So if I was talking in real estate terms, I'd say it's most like self-storage, because it has similar attributes. I mean, self-storage, consumer behaves differently because they may only go twice, once to put stuff in and once to pull stuff out. So it's a different consumer experience, but as a model, it's similar. You've got this kind of recurring, monthly income tied to it. And I think, self-storage, I looked at it a few times. It probably prints to about a 10 yield on cost, something like that. So I think car wash is like that. There's a bit more operation to it than self-storage because, there is activity happening on site. But we're running it with 3 or 4 people, so it's not heavy. It's not heavy, labor business. So those are the reasons why we like it, and it's very local. It's Amazon proof. I think it's AI proof. It's very local. People will travel 10, 12 minutes to the nearest car wash, so they couldn't really care what's going on, 20 miles away. It's irrelevant. So every site therefore becomes very micro, and how you're looking at it. Of course, you can always have competition open up close by you, which is a threat. But by the time you get embedded with your membership, if you've got, if you make sure you're buying the best real estate, so you've got, prime location, and we've got a really good understanding of what that is, and have built an AI model to help us, to do and to score that. If you get the right real estate within every area, you can really lock and load and be in a very good position to keep competition out. And people, the belief we're going to have is that if we're operating really well and really delivering for the consumer, then people will rather stay away from where our sites are and go elsewhere.
And if I'm not mistaken, did you raise kind of high net worth and accredited capital for the car wash business through Meta and kind of ads?
We have done that. Yeah, US is, you see, you kind of talk about the difference between the UK and the US. The US obviously is a bit more, it's just more entrepreneurial. It's more open, less regulated, good and bad. In this instance, good for us. But yeah, we have, we're able to put ads on Facebook and Instagram. And particularly when we got going, look, when you first start a business like this up, people read the paper that you present, they look at the numbers, they go, yeah, I really like it, go prove it. Until you got a few open and you deliver those numbers, most sophisticated larger investors are not going to invest. So we had to do it with our own money, which, put quite a lot of our own money into the opco and the brand and putting a team together. And then for the sites, we run through a sort of propco fundco model, and we wanted to bring LPs in. And so we focused on working with more entrepreneurial, high net worth, family office type investors. And one of the avenues we used was Meta. Just ran a series of ads. We ran some good ads, to be honest. And I think today we've probably got about 7,000 people now in our database that we talk to that are on a nurture program, and I don't forget the exact numbers are, but we've probably raised, getting on for 30 million, something like that, through that source over the last, kind of year and a half. So, pretty good for a new business. And I think the great thing is, having built that now, we continue to communicate with them, share with what's going on. A couple of things. One is, I know there's a bunch of people who are close to coming in, and as we get store number 2 open in February, and then we should finish this year hopefully on 5 or 6 stores being open, it gets easier for people to jump in. So I know we're building up a wall of capital. I don't know how quickly that comes in, but I know we're building it up all the time. And so yeah, really good. I mean, and bluntly, for the quantum we've raised, for what we spent, it's phenomenally good value for money.
And talk to me about, you touched on kind of the tech piece, just in terms of the car wash, and you touched on the fact that kind of maybe other garage or kind of single petrol station ones rip your car apart. That's definitely happened to me before. Talk to me about some of the kind of the tech in the actual car wash, and also, if I'm not mistaken, you use hot water or warm water rather than cold water as well. Just talk to me about some of the kind of the moats and some of the kind of the mechanisms that you've thought about in terms of protecting the kind of the localized business. Yeah,
no, absolutely. Yeah, no, we put a lot of thought into that. So, but the start point was interesting. The start point was, again, going back to FMCG kind of background, was understand the consumer need. So what are the things that really irritate the consumer at the moment that you could address and make better than other people? So, the issues that came out to us were, on most car washes in the US, the tunnels that you drive into, you have to drive in, there's a chain pull. So you have to get your front tyre or wheel into the chain. And a lot of people either don't, they're a bit nervous about that. Have they lined it up properly? Is it going? Or they're worried that the chain's going to damage the wheel. You've got a nice car, you're concerned that it grabs it and pulls it along, and is it going to scratch it? So one of the things we did is say, well, let's remove that anxiety and that concern altogether. Let's put like a people mover in instead. So like you have at an airport. So you just literally drive on. And so you take all of that risk away, and you don't have to line it up as perfectly, as you do with that. So that was one particular change, again, just to address that. A second concern was dirty wheels or dirty tires. People, that's one of the harder bits to clean. People didn't like it if they came out of the car wash and the car looked, clean and shiny, but the wheels looked dirty. And so we put extra technology. So I think we touched the wheels something like 9 times now. Going through our wash, and I think the nearest competitor is probably at, I don't know exactly, but maybe 6 or 7. And we put some new kit in specifically to make sure we could do a better job at getting the tire clean and the tire shine. The third thing was the dry. They hate it when they come out and the car's still wet. So we went back to our Formula One friends and worked with the guys who are the lead aerodynamicists in Formula One, who happened to be a relative of Emma's, and said, right guys, run this through your wind tunnel and tell us. We've done 4 different cars now, different shaped cars, through a wind tunnel to look at the exact location you need to put the blowers, the quantum of blowers that you need, and the amount of power that you need. And so as a consequence of that, we've actually reduced the amount of kit we need, because we now place them in such a way that they're able to get the car drier than anybody else. So and then on the chemical, on the the chemicals that we're using are also the next generation. So working with a local or out of state but American manufacturer of chemical, and we've been able to design something very specifically with him, which provides. So at the moment in the US, they're still talking about things like ceramic, and we're way ahead of that with the type of shine and coating, such that even ours over time, where you've got kind of dinks in the car, over time will gradually start to fill those dinks in, and with the sort of residue that it's leaving. And so extra shiny and almost like a car repair that's going on.
Sounds great in the US where the weather's good most of the time. How does that apply to the kind of the UK and Europe? And are your plans to kind of take the model over here in due course?
Yeah, I mean, US, the weather's generally good in Florida, so you're right, but these are all over the US. The sort of the propensity for usage is pretty much the same. It's just a different reason to use it. So if I'm up in the sort of west coast of the US, then kind of Seattle or whatever, where it rains a lot, there's often a lot of residual dirt on the road as a consequence. That gets back onto my car, so I need to get my car cleaned. If I'm in New York or Chicago and get those winter storms, again, the car gets very dirty, so I need to get it cleaned. I go through pollen seasons at different times. So every area has a different reason. So the actual kind of usage of car wash is pretty ubiquitous across the US, and I suspect it's the same in the UK. There might be a difference in that Americans potentially look after their cars a bit better. I mean, you do get, I spent some time in France, and I'd say the French generally don't look after their cars as well as the Brits. Germans do look after their cars, so you do get these sort of cultural differences. But I think the weather just provides a different opportunity to clean a car. So I think it still absolutely works in the UK. There just really isn't anything quite like this yet in the UK. I mean, I've likened it before to, and you'll be too young to appreciate this, but when McDonald's first came to the UK in the 1970s, and all we had before that was Wimpy burgers, and you went to a Wimpy, and that was really exciting, in the 70s, but it was slow, and it was an okay product, but it was slow and not great. And then McDonald's was like a revolution, these kind of all this fast moving and the range, it's merchandise and everything else. And I think car wash coming to the UK and Europe will be a bit like that. I think it's so different to anything else that we have here, that I'm very excited about it, and think that it will be an opportunity. There are obviously constraints. Land's more of a constraint in the UK, which you need to be thoughtful about, and obviously land's very expensive in parts of the UK. But I think a fundamental consumer proposition will be very robust here.
So is it a real estate play or is it a consumer play?
A bit of both. I think it's a bit of both. I mean, I don't think you can. You need, and you do need both. Look, if you get the real estate wrong, you're going to lose money. So real estate's really important. If you get the consumer bit wrong, you're going to lose money. So you've got to get the consumer bit right and the product bit right as well. So I think they go hand in hand.